Okay, good morning. Today is the 13th of March, no, 13th of October, 2019. It actually was down to 31 degrees last night, so I had ice on the windows this morning. The reason for this video is because this is basically going to talk about a notary and the position of notary. There are several positions within the basic government, your county, your state, etc. You're going to want to have a community builder, someone who can actually explain how to do the work that's necessary in order to fill the positions or the offices within each county and within the state. That one would understand more about the different financial bases, the Liberty Dollar, the common good, the Replik, can be able to explain things like that for people, uh, put together meetings and so forth. Of course, you have a commissioner who's basically the treasurer, the one who's going to deal with finances. You have a notary. You're going to need a sheriff, uh, and then a scribe. You can call these different names. They do. Scribe, you might want to say secretary, sheriff. Uh, you know, basically a notary is justice of the peace. So there are different names. I'm not going to go into the rhetoric on things like that. But the reason for this video is because the I know that there are going to be conversations coming up on notaries, and so I wanted to get this on video. Um, the notary is basically the justice of the peace. The notary has more authority on the land jurisdiction than the Supreme Court at the jurisdiction of the sea. You need to remember that the land jurisdiction created the commercial jurisdiction. So you have people who were created under the Declaration of Independence, and then you have number one, the family unit, and then you take those family units and put them together, and you come up with an assembly of people, and then that assembly would elect delegates for an international venue. So there are three basic levels. So the people on the soil of each of the nation states, wherever they were born, then that gives them the authority to create and create by contract, even if you want to put it that way, because all things on the planet are commercial. Everything is commercial. Doesn't matter what it is. When you go buy bubble gum, it's commercial. Everything that a man does outside of the family unit basically is going to become some kind of a commercial action. Men can work privately, of course, and that's the ultimate goal, is to return back to the land jurisdiction where we belong. So with this video, I'm going to be talking about the notary, but I'm going to be talking about what the notary is not, probably more than what the notary actually is. So let me bring up some of my notes here. Basically, though, the notary, for example, if you have a, how do you get a notary? Well, you want to choose the right one to be your notary. That's just the way it is. The notary must understand the law. So the law itself is the basis of what the notary should know and understand. And there's a lot of different kinds of law. Of course, there's treaty law, trust law, common law, ecclesiastical law, canon law. There's just all kinds of law, Sharia law. There's just most of the religions have their own laws. Every church has their books of that they follow with their rules and regulations and things like that. So what law are we talking about? Well, we're actually talking about the basic functions of common law and equity, which would be the law of nature and equity, because that which is natural to a man is what is common to a man. So when you hear somebody talk about natural law, that's also common law. Um, in another video, I'm going to be talking more about the fundamentals of the courts and how how the terminologies that are used within the courts and banking, because most of the courts, well, all of the courts are basically banks. They're operated uh, from that perspective. So our courts with a notary are not like that. Um, and so that's why I made up a list of things that a notary is not, because more people they have knowledge of what a notary is not than what a notary actually is. Because a notary in and of themselves, outside of what they do, what they are is just a position of authority that keeps everything within the law. So if there is a grand jury decision, it is the notary that would make certain that that decision is lawful before there's an autograph that goes on it. It is the responsibility of the notary to make sure that the grand jury and what the grand jury is doing is lawful. Now, the jury itself can use jury nullification. So we're not talking about statutes and rules and regulations or anything like that. We're actually talking about the basic functions of law. And law is something that is made up. It's made up by the people. Um, you know, the Ten Commandments, some would want to say, well, this is law. And you can do that uh, as a basis for what you might want to believe. But before those Ten Commandments, what kind of law existed? Because there's always law, but what kind of law? So the law that we're talking about is what the people believe. All right, so I'm going to start with first, no matter what I'm talking about, I don't want you to believe what I'm telling you. I don't want you to believe anything that I'm telling you right now because this is my truth and it's only my truth. So um, you need to find your own truth. Now, whatever I talk about might become your truth, but it's not yours until you believe it. So what I'm telling you is mine. It comes from my book, the book of Timothy. Um, so in the book of Timothy, it says the truth will make you free, and that truth is my truth. I've come to realize that what it's talking about is my truth. It's not someone else's truth, but it's what I believe is true. That's the only thing that will make me free. So what I believe will either make me free or keep me in slavery. What I believe, because I reap what I sow. That's the law. So if I believe something that will keep me in slavery, then I'm obviously going to be a slave because that's what I believe. So it's what you believe that will make the difference moving forward. So don't believe what I believe. It is only what you hold within your own being that will make the difference. So I'm going to go through a list of words, and these are words, for example, if you are a notary or if you know a notary, let me give you an example in this way. If you're in court and you are a counsel, or if you have a counsel, but you should be your own counsel when you're in court, because everyone should actually learn how to be their own counsel. You cannot be represented by somebody else. You can have a friend speak for you, but you cannot be represented by somebody else. So you never take an attorney, for example, into court, because if you take an attorney into court, that means that you have no voice of your own, number one. Number two, it means you, what's the word I'm looking for? You are an idiot. Is exactly what it means, the word idiot. So if you go into court with a representative, it's because you are considered an idiot. So you have a notary, for example, and let's say you have a counsel, and that counsel knows the law and knows the language of law, because that's what we're going to be talking about today is the language of the notary, the language of the law. So you have this language, and maybe you have an elected notary who was a farmer, and that farmer does not know the language, but the council knows the language. Who would you rather have speaking, or who would you rather have? Would you want to be the council who actually knows how to speak and how to write properly? Well, of course. It would be better that the council knows what's going on even more than the notary. Okay, so let's say that you do not have a good counsel, but you have a good notary, and the notary actually knows the language and knows the law. Then that's actually should be to your advantage. Um, as we go down through these things, I'll be explaining this, and it will become a lot more clear as to how we must behave. It is our behavior, it is our actions that speak louder than our words. So it is our behavior based on what we believe that will make all the difference moving forward. So I'm going to give you some words. I'm going to start with the word constitution. What is a constitution? Well, a constitution is a contract. So a constitution is a contract. It's a contract, for example, the Constitution of the United States of America is a commercial contract. And that contract does not belong to me. It's not my contract. It belongs to the people that wrote it. Or it belongs to the government because it's a contract for government. It's not mine. No, nothing that's in the Constitution, nothing that's in the Bill of Rights, nothing of that belongs to me. It's not mine. I'm not allowed to talk about it in court. I'm not allowed to use it in court because it doesn't belong to me. The Bill of Rights did not give me rights. I had the rights before it was written. So if I have the right of freedom of speech, then that doesn't have to be written down somewhere in order for me to have it. That's written down so that they know I have it. So it's their Bill of Rights, not mine. It's their Constitution. It's not my Constitution. It's not my Bill of Rights. I cannot go into court and argue about the Bill of Rights or the Constitution because they don't belong to me. They're not mine. And I'll explain this a little more detail here in a minute. Well, let me tell you something. You're not going to like everything I have to say today. You're not going to like it at all because the Bible does not belong to you. It was written somewhere else by somebody else, and it belongs to them. That Bible in your hand does not belong to you. It's not yours. So the King James Version was written by, guess who? King James. King James, the law of England, the law that they work with is called admiralty. So the King James is admiralty, which means it belongs to them. Doesn't belong to me. That book does not belong to me. I cannot use it in court. It's not mine. All of the statutes, the rules, the regulations, the codes, the ordinances, all that stuff that they write belongs to them, not me. I cannot use their statutes against them. I cannot use these things in court. So let's explain this. Really, really simple. It's real simple. You cannot use their Constitution because it belongs to them. They have copyrights on it. And you would be infringing on those copyrights to try to talk about the Bill of Rights. All right, so let's talk about the Supreme Court, for example. Within the Supreme Court, they make opinions. They might have a decision, which is an opinion, and I'm going to read you one right now. So, the United States versus Ballard. This is 322 U.S. 78 from 1944. So, what this Supreme Court decision says is whether a religious belief is true or false is irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the judicial determination as long as the belief is sincerely held. So, let's talk about this. The King James Version of the Bible belongs to the Queen of England. It's not mine. I cannot use it in court. I cannot go in there and start spouting off scripture as if it belonged to me whenever I'm saying it come from a King James Version of the Bible. I can't do that. I'm out of my league. I'm out of my jurisdiction. I can't do that. I don't own the copyright to that book. But what I can do is I can say, I believe, like I said earlier, I believe that the truth will make me free. And that's all I need to say. Because when I believe it, it's the law. So I started by saying, do not believe anything I'm telling you unless you really honestly believe it. It has to be your truth. Okay, so let's read this again. United States versus Ballard, 322 U.S. 78 144, which is 1944. Whether a religious belief is true or false is irrelevant to a judicial determination, as long as the belief is sincerely held. So, I cannot use their Constitution in court. Defensively, I can use stuff offensively. How do I do that? I say, okay, so I can't go into court and quote the Supreme Court. But what I can do is say, your Supreme Court says this. Your Supreme Court says this. Your Constitution says this. Yours. I'm pointing to them and I'm saying your Constitution. And I'm pointing to them and I'm saying your King James Bible says this. Yours says this. And I believe Therefore, that whether this is true or false is irrelevant because this is what I believe. All right, so let's get a real good handle on this. Common law is the customs of the people. It's a custom of the people that we do one thing or another. Therefore, if I sincerely believe in this custom, no matter what it is, it the court has to uphold this custom. All right, so these are the understandings of a notary. All right, so these are the understandings of the notary. This is law. This is real law. A statute, code, ordinance, rules, regulations, those are not law. Those are corporate, incorporated rules for the employees that belong to that company. So if you are a U.S. citizen, then you need to follow the rules of that federal corporation under that federal contract called a Constitution. So if you work for the federal government, then you need to follow the rules of that government. But if you're not an employee, then you're not a U.S. citizen. You don't follow those rules because none of them apply to you. The Constitution does not apply to you. The Bill of Rights does not apply to you. The Brady Bill does not apply to you. All of these Supreme Court decisions do not specifically apply unless you want to believe outside of their little box, because you're outside their box. They want to bring you into their box. So you stay outside their box. When you go into court, they put boxes everywhere. You cannot enter the box. You don't enter the bar. You don't go into a box full of people called a jury box. You don't do that. At common law, when you go into a common law court, everything is even. There's no heights, no depths that are uneven. Everything is on an even keel. So the magistrate might be sitting at a desk, but everybody is on the same level in the courtroom. There's no box for the jury. There's only a bunch of chairs sitting there so that they can hear what's going on. There's no bar. You don't have separations in common law or at common law. Okay? So, the words that I'm talking about are actually coming from several venues, but they are all equally dead. The Supreme Court decision from 1795 that I've talked about on other videos, and it says that the dead cannot deal with the living. So that's because I'm a living man and I'm creating everything commercial. So everything that I create is dead. It's just something written on a piece of paper. It has no life of its own. But I'm creating that thing. So I always give the example, if I create a three-legged stool, that stool's not allowed to tell me it wants to be a chair. It can't do that. It's dead. But I created it. So I create contracts. The contracts don't talk to me. I talk to them. So government does not tell me what to do. I tell them what I want them to do. I tell them how I want it done. They don't tell me, I tell them. Because we are the creators of everything. So the land jurisdiction creates the sea. All right. So, 1 second. So I'm going to go through these following words, and these are a venue. They have a venue that they use, and this venue is satanic. I don't care. I'm telling you, a lot of, if you're listening to this, you may not like what I'm saying because you don't understand it. But everything that they do is basically church. So a courtroom, when you walk into a courtroom, it's basically a satanic church. All right. When it's their courtroom, it is a bank. So you're walking into a bank, and you have to know banker babble if you want to deal with them in their bank. Um, so this is a venue of religious satanic worship. This is a bank where they worship money. They worship money. And the admiralty worship the dead. So let's go through some of these words. Some of the words that the de facto uses. So I'm talking about a notary, and a notary must understand these words. All right. So the word charge. You go into court and they charge you with a crime. Now, number one, the federal law says that they cannot charge you with anything that's criminal. Anything that they say is criminal is actually civil. Why? Because they are a corporation, and no corporation can make up a criminal offense. They can't do it. They can only bring civil charges. That's why they make charges, because it's a bank. A bank will charge you something. So when you go to a store and you buy a loaf of bread, they charge you for the loaf of bread. Same word. They are charging you something. They are making a bond, putting it in your name. It is up to you to claim that bond. I'm not going to go into that right now, but that's your job. So they are charging something. This is a financial exchange. That's what the court is. This is a church where they are, like Jesus overturned the money changers. The exact same thing. That's what this is. They are money changers. All right. So they bond people. A bond. What is a bond? A bond is something that binds you. Right? A bond binds you. That's what a bond is. It's a contract. Currency. This is the movement of the current of the water. So, currency is the movement of all of these things in commerce. Everything moves in commerce. That's currency. Summons. What is a summons? A summons means a satanic ritual. It's to summon something from the dead. So you go in there with a summons, and they're summoning the dead in the court. A corporation. What is a corporation? It comes from the basic root word corpse, the dead. So, a motion. This is a request for permission from the dead. That's what a motion is. You're requesting something from the dead. A document. A document is when you doc something, and you're asking which dock did you meant? which dock was I supposed to go to? Which dock? I'm a vessel at sea, and I need to dock my ship. What ship? Well, I need to dock my citizenship. I need to dock my membership. I need to dock my partnership. These are all ships at sea. They are admiralty language. This is a language. This is legalese at work. So you have a corporation which is dead, and there's a motion, a currency. and you're asking permission from the dead, which is a motion. And you have documents, which you're bringing a bill of lading and you're putting it on the dock so that they can stamp it with their seal. You're going to let them seal your paperwork because you're calling it a document. All right. A vessel, of course, a vessel is a ship at sea, and they call you vessels. They call you, which is terrible. You, the word you is terrible. The word you. Okay, so I'm saying, hey, you. What, did I just call you a sheep? A ewe? EWE? A ewe? What did I call you? A you. The word you is a terrible word if you actually look it up and understand it. So uh, the words that they use are incredible, but the English language is extraordinarily evil. And okay, so I learned how to spell a word. Spell, like I put a spell on you. That's what that is. When you write in English, it's a spell. You are concocting a spell. You're, so you write in English. Huh. All right. Surname. They make a surname for you, which is a last name. A serf, subject. You become a subject to the crown, like a serf. That's what surname is. Debtor, which comes from the word death, dead, death, debtor. Signature. This is signature is a sign. You never sign anything, ever. Never sign. Never. Not unless you want to be a U.S. citizen. You don't sign anything. You don't even use the word sign. Stop using the word sign. Stop using the word signature. You are a living man. You autograph. Don't sign anything. It's a sign in the sky. Woo! You know, you put up a sign. I am dead. That's a sign. You know, you don't sign. You don't use sign language, do you? Why would you sign something? No, you don't sign anything. That makes you a representative, which means it's not really you. You have to autograph. I get it drives me crazy whenever I hear people using the wrong language. They talk about documents and signatures and and they don't even understand that they're U.S. citizens by right. I mean, I understand why Anna von Reitz says that these people are U.S. citizens. Well, because they're using documents and vessels and they're talking like U.S. citizens because they sign stuff. Well, of course you're a U.S. citizen when you go around signing stuff. What do you expect? Do not write in cursive. Whenever I make my autograph, I print. I don't write. I print. I print for a reason because I don't use cursive because cursive is a curse. They have taught you to use a curse. Okay, so the letters, they all bind together. They all join to one another. That is a current, currency. That's the C. So when you write all these letters together, it's a currency. It's a curse. Stop writing stuff in longhand. Start printing stuff. Print your name. I'm not going to go into that right now. It's just, it would take a whole video just to talk about it. So I talked about, citizenship, partnership, membership. Those are all commercial. When you join, or when you can't even join a Jural Assembly. How do you do that? You know, we have participants in the assembly. There is no membership in the assembly. Membership, like it's some kind of ship at sea. No, there's no membership. There's no citizenship. It's there's no citizenship. There's only participants, participation in a jural assembly. You cannot have membership, membership in an assembly. You don't have that. Okay, so you have stocks and bonds. Stocks. When you are born, they give you a birthing certificate. Birth, Berth, like on a ship. When somebody goes there and there's cargo on a ship, and they put the cargo in a berth. That's where it belongs, in that berth number 3629 on a ship. So you are cargo on a ship when you are birthed. People are born. People are not birthed. Animals are birthed. They're birthed into a stall. Cattle are birthed. Okay, so so let's go over the word abandon real quick. A baby is born in water. A baby is born, and they tell you that the baby is birthed because the doctor grabs it and puts it in a berth and hands it to the registrar who registers it, and then they gift it back to the mother. So from the beginning, this is a commercial operation. They give it to the doc. You birth to the doc, the doctor, the tor, right, takes the birth and hands it to the registrar, the nurse, and they register that birth with a birth certificate, and then they gift it back to the mother. All right, let's talk about this for a minute. Give. Never give your name away. Never, if somebody says, give me your name, don't do it. You don't give away your name. That's what happens when a police officer comes up to the side of your car. Give me your name. If you give away your name, it's not yours anymore. It belongs to them. So they can do whatever they want with it. Don't give them your name. When you go into court, don't give them your name. If you give them the name, then that means you're giving away the name. It's not yours when you gave it away. You gotta think about this stuff, guys. That's why you don't give them your name. It's a gift. You're gifting it. You're gifting the name. No, don't do that. Just the way that they claim that you abandoned the baby when it came out of the birth canal. You abandoned the baby to the doc, and then it was registered, and then it was given or gifted back to the mother after it was registered. All right. So that's what the word abandoned, that's where it comes from. All right. And then what they do is they monetize that birth certificate and they trade it as a stock. Stock. What is that? Well, cattle, cows, bulls, calves. That's cattle. Stock is cattle. So they trade you like a slave. They bond and monetize you, and they trade that stock, cattle, a commodity, on the stock exchange. I know this video is going to be longer than what I would want it to be, but you need to understand this language of the notary. Get it? The notary has to understand everything that I'm talking about when it comes to this language. If you want to talk about the notary, then you have to talk about the language that the notary cannot use. If you hear a notary using documents, you better run. If you have a notary who says we want you to sign something, you better run. Because that notary doesn't know crap about the law. So if you're going to nominate someone and elect someone in your jural assemblies to be a notary, they better understand the language of the law. They better understand the customs of the people. Because being a notary is no small thing. That notary has more authority than the Supreme Court because they are sitting on a land jurisdiction, and the land creates the sea. If you're talking about a notary, then you need to be talking about the federal circuit courts. Those federal circuit courts are basically where the notary should be sitting. Okay, so the Declaration of Independence created the family unit. The family unit, when they get together, this family, that family, that family, they make an assembly. That assembly can create the delegates that go to the international jurisdiction. That's called federal. That international jurisdiction is what is called federal. So the Congress is federal. It's a federal Congress. It's made up from the states at an international jurisdiction. So when you have the federal circuit court, you have a federal state, it's a state-oriented court. It's not often some other land that you don't know about. It's not corporate. Federal is not corporate. Federal is the land jurisdiction. That's why this fake government, the de facto, call themselves federal, but they're not acting federal. Because if they were, they would be working the land jurisdiction. So now that we have come together and the states have come back together, and you have jural assemblies in the states, only because you have working jural assemblies, which is more than 3 people, right? More than 2 anyway. So you have working jural assemblies in every state. Now you have a federal Republican form of government. You didn't have that before. A democracy is not a Republican form of government. I'm not going to go into that. So you have federal circuit courts. That's where the notary works. Now, the notary can work in any jurisdiction. The notary can work on any level, and the notary can work state to state. Okay, even under the Articles of Confederation. When you read the Articles of Confederation, it says that the states can help out one another as needed. So if someone needs a notary over in Ohio, then Pennsylvania can help them out. That's not a problem. They could actually bring paperwork. Okay, so like we have a recorder's office in Pennsylvania to record our own paperwork, so we don't have to go to the de facto counties and have them record our paperwork. Why in the hell would I want a de facto government to record my paperwork? Why would I want them to, why would I want a notary that is under the foreign Secretary of State for a corporation? Why would I want that corporation to autograph my paperwork? That just doesn't make any sense. Unless I'm going into their court That makes no sense at all. So, um, anyway, this has been a fairly long video, but the notary is an extremely important position, and that notary has to know the law. But that notary has to understand the language of the law. And the language of the de facto is not the language of a notary. So you need to elect notaries who know the law, who know the language of law, because the common law language is not admiralty. The law of equity is is contract. It is not admiralty, though. It is not. You're talking about trusts, treaty law, the natural law, or unknown law. That notary has to understand those things. So, all right, I'm going to cut this off and hope you all have a wonderful day. And sun's starting to shine out here. And till we meet again, I'll probably make another video as a follow up.